Hey everyone, Matt Avery here. Welcome to RaceDay Scoring Introduction. Today's section is going to be covered as a part of the RaceDay Scoring certification, but also can be helpful if you just want to know more about RaceDay Scoring to learn about its different features and the different functionalities that it has. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to be covering a great amount of detail today, all the way from managing races, participants, streams and locations, scored events, segments, age groups, top finishers, and reports. We're going to cover the full breadth of the software. Now, we can't cover everything in depth, so we're going to give you an overview of each, and then there are links in the provided documents that we've given you. If you wanted to explore this further, you can click on these links, and it'll bring you to the help guides about that feature. But today is really going to be more of a general overview. Won't be diving in too deep into it. So let's go ahead and get started. First thing is managing races with RaceDay Scoring. It's important to understand how it works. So first off, what is a race? It's very important to understand what we talk about when we talk about races and events, because other systems use different terminology, and so we got to get things straight. In RaceDay Scoring, a race is a collection of related competitions or events held within the same year, typically on the same day or weekend. Races in RaceDay Scoring are equivalent to RunSignup races, and a race can include one or many other events, which are typically different race distances. For example, you'd have the Run for Hope, which includes a 10K and a 5K. The Run for Hope is the race, and the 10K and the 5K are events within that race. So now, how would you go about creating a race in RaceDay Scoring? So a race, we refer to it as like a scoring file sometimes. And what it is basically a way to score a RunSignup race or a manually created race. So you can either import a RunSignup race, or you can create a race manually in RaceDay Scoring. So on the left, you'll see the import from RunSignup. There's a link at the top. If you wanted to click that, it'll bring you over to our help guide. It's the right choice for races using RunSignup. So if you are working with a race that is already on RunSignup, you want to import it from RunSignup. This is really nice because the participant data will sync automatically. There's no manual downloads or uploads. You don't have to get a spreadsheet and import that. It just happens for you right away. Participant data will appear magically when the race is connected, and then changes in RunSignup instantly reflect in RaceDay Scoring and vice versa. So you don't have to worry about getting updates from the race organizer in a new spreadsheet. All those changes just come into RaceDay Scoring in real time. And if you make changes in RaceDay Scoring, if someone switches from the 5K to the 10K on site, those changes automatically update registration as well. So you don't have to worry about informing the race organizer if someone did make a change. All happens for you. Now, if you need to, you can create a race manually. This is the option that you want to use if the race is not on RunSignup. Now, you could create the race on RunSignup and then pull it down, but it's a little bit of extra effort that's not necessary. So we recommend creating the race in RaceDay Scoring. And then if you wanted to use RunSignup's results features, cloud syncing features, and all of those nice things we talked about, you can publish it from RaceDay Scoring to RunSignup, just as a way to use all of those additional features that are free to you. So if your race is already on RunSignup, just a note, you really need to use the import option. You do not want to manually create the race and then try to link it. Not possible. You have to import it from RunSignup if it originated from there. It's going to save yourself a lot of headaches if you just import it right away. It's not going to be good if you create the race locally and then publish it to RunSignup if it already exists there, because then you're going to have two versions of the race, one with results and one without, and that's not what you want either. Okay, so how would you go about doing this? In RaceDay Scoring, when you open up the race, there's when you open up software, you can come in to the Manage Races, and you can import a race on RunSignup, this green button, or you can create a new race on the right with this other button. And so again, importing a race from RunSignup if it's already there, creating a new race if it's not already there. So that's the basic rundown. Next, we're going to talk about participants. how to import them, add them one by one, and view and manage participants. So to start with, once you have a race loaded in RaceDay scoring, you would go to the Participants tab. On the left, there's a series of tabs that you can walk down. Participants is the one that looks like participants, looks like some people. Just click that, and then you should see your list of participants. If you don't see it quite yet, you may have to sync to RunSignup and just use this refresh icon up at the top here. That'll just tell the system to automatically sync. It does it every 30 seconds for you, but if you're impatient like I am sometimes, you can click that refresh icon in the top right to force it. Okay, so now let's talk about importing participants. There's definitely times where you, as a timer, need to import participants. Sometimes there's ones that you collected on site who registered in paper and you typed up a spreadsheet. Sometimes you're using a third-party registration provider and you need to import the data from that. So two main ways you can get participants into RaceDay scoring: a manual import. This is where you would import your spreadsheet, like a CSV, or an automatic. Obviously, if you're using RunSignup, the participants, like I said, come down automatically. If you're already using RunSignup Race, basically the participant data is going to come automatically down. So you don't have to worry about importing data if it's being imported to RunSignup or if they're registering on RunSignup. That'll happen for you automatically in the background. But if you are using RunSignup, there's no issue with importing a CSV of participants into RaceDay scoring. If you needed to add supplemental participants or you needed to update participants, you can do that in RaceDay scoring. You do not have to import the data into RunSignup and let it come down into RaceDay scoring. You can certainly import it directly into RaceDay scoring. It's a lot easier to manage everything on RaceDay and RaceDay scoring instead of having to go over to RunSignup to do that. So in RaceDay scoring, you would just go to the Participants tab, and there's a button to import participants. And if you want to learn more about importing participants, you can follow the guides. We're not going to dive into too much detail right now, but it's pretty straightforward. Next, if you need to add participants one by one, you can do that. You'd rather, if you only have a handful you need to add or just one entry comes up, you can just click add and then type in their information. Once you get to the add participant screen, there are some functions that you may want to look into. There's a way to enable quick mode, which basically hides a set of fields that you may not need. You can configure which fields will show in quick mode and which ones are hidden using the settings button up here. And then we also have keyboard shortcuts. If you're accustomed to using only a keyboard for typing in data entry, it's pretty helpful. It allows you to do things like Alt-S to save and things like that. Next, we're going to talk a little bit about how chip assignments work in RaceDay scoring. So the way we use chip assignments is we basically, for some systems, they have a transponder code, which is like a alphanumeric code. And the alphanumeric code is mapped to a bib number. And the bib number is what the people actually wear on course. So our system needs to know what bib number equals what transponder so that we can figure out which participant this read goes to. And to manage all that, we use a bib chip cross-reference. It's what we call it. But basically, you would come into the Participants tab under Actions and click Setup Chip Auto Assignment. What this does is it allows you to upload a spreadsheet of bib number and chip. And then whenever a registration comes in from RunSignup, the system looks at that spreadsheet and says, oh, I now have a bib number 123, and I know that bib number 123 equals XYZ147, whatever. And it will automatically assign that chip to that participant. So this is really critical to understand. You have to manage your chip assignments through this function. You do not want to use the RunSignup chip field. It's really critical that you do it in RaceDay scoring. Let RaceDay scoring do its thing, and basically what you want to do is import your CSV of all of the chip assignments that will happen for this race. So typically timers will upkeep a chip cross-reference file of like all of their bib numbers they know they have transponders for, and if one gets lost, they'll substitute it in. But the big thing that you have to make sure you do here is provide a bib chip cross-reference for every single one in the race, even those who have not registered yet. So if you're doing a 5K and you only have 100 people registered, but you might get a few more. You want to make sure that you import enough chip assignments to cover anyone who may register. So you're not limited to just those who are in the current database. You want to do it for everyone. So this makes it easier. You don't have to worry about importing the data, like the chip assignments, to RunSignup. And then if more people register, you have to come back in and add those chip assignments. RaceDay scoring will just do it for you. So just make sure that you go into your setup chip auto assignment if you need to do this. Now, some chip systems, you don't need this at all, right? Because the bib number actually is the chip number. So you can completely ignore this feature if you're using something like MyLapse, their bib tag system, where you don't need to provide a transponder number. So I mentioned this before, but basically that bib chip file is what we're creating here. It's a simple text file that links the code on the timing chip to the corresponding bib number. It's like a translator. It allows RaceDay scoring to match the chip reads to the right participant. So the data that we get from your readers looks something like this: the time of day that it was seen and the transponder number, an ADS 3241, whatever. The bib chip file says, okay, I know ADS 3241 equals bib 123. That's helpful. The final one is the database, the athlete database, and it knows that bib 123 was worn by John Smith. And what the bib chip file allows us to do is translate from just the transponder number to the participant. So now we know that John Smith had a time at 11:23:45 because we could follow that chain from raw read to transponder number to bib number to registration data. So that's why if you're using a system that has an alphanumeric chip code, you need to set up a bib chip file. Now again, some don't need to do this. If you're using MyLapse or others, that the bib number is the chip number, so you can kind of ignore this slide. Next, let's talk about streams and timing locations. This is how we get timing data into RaceDay scoring from your readers. So what are streams? In RaceDay scoring, streams are the way that we get your timing data in. You can think of them as the bridge between your timing gear and RaceDay scoring. Streams connect to a few different things. They could connect directly to your hardware. This includes decoders or readers, typically iPico or Trident. Those are the ones that we directly connect to. The next thing that they do is they connect to middleware products. This would be something like what MyLapse and ChronoTrack have. Specifically, those are called timing and scoring for MyLapse, Simple Client, and Fusion for ChronoTrack. Those are pieces of software that manage the readers as provided by the actual chip systems. So Fusion is made by ChronoTrack and allows ChronoTrack users to connect to multiple readers and manage them and change settings. We don't handle any of that stuff. We're just trying to get the data. And so basically, if we connect to this middleware product, they send over just the chip read data. That's all we care about. And the other option is files in a folder. If your timing data is saved into files, like a text or CSV file, you can set up a stream to pull that data in as well. Once a stream is connected, it gathers all the chip read data and sends it over to RaceDay scoring. And then from there, it's turned into scored reads based on a setup that you've configured. So we're going to talk a little bit further about this, but basically the idea is you can have these different sources and they're all dumping reads into RaceDay scoring. And we're getting all the data in the stream. We're not doing anything about filtering. We don't care about duplicate chip numbers and things like this. It's just all going to come in. Now, I will say this is a pretty complicated step because each and every single chip system is different. They all manage their data differently. It looks a little bit different, and the setup is slightly different. And I'm not going to go through each and every single way of setting this up. So if you want more assistance or more information how your particular system integrates with RaceDay scoring, go ahead and check out this link here about getting reads. We have a few different guides on different chip systems and a few videos of timers actually explaining how they use RaceDay scoring with their systems. So to set up streams in RaceDay scoring, you would go to the dashboard and go to the little streams icon. It looks like an arrow down into a box. So the next step in our reads is getting them to timing locations. So timing locations are a collection of one or many streams of read data. So data from these streams is filtered based on the timing location type. It's very critical to understand. Basically, for start locations, we always want to take the last recorded time seen. But for finish or split locations, we want to get the first time. This is basically the way that all timing systems work out there, because if you imagine it, you're going to a race, you're registered, and you walked over to the start line, and there's a start mat on the ground, and you're standing on it. You've already got a start read, right? Because you're standing on the start line. When the gun goes off, you're still reading a little bit after that gun. So what we want to do is take the very last time that your chip was detected in the field of the start area and say that is your start read, because that's going to give you the fastest net chip time, right? Basically, we want to make sure we get the very, very last time seen for your starts. But on the other side, when you're coming into the finish, the very first time would be the one that we want to use for your finish read. Now, all chip systems out there have different ways of selecting the actual reads. They have different profiles that they can use to get the best scene read, or the first scene or the last scene. So all of that discussion kind of has to happen with your hardware manufacturer. But basically, whatever data we get from your readers, we select the last or the first based on the location type that it's connected to. So basically, critically, these locations also allow you to define these time filters. So they allow you to say, hey, for my starts, I want you to consider reads until 9:05 a.m. And then I want to start considering finish reads after 10 a.m., something like that. What's nice about timing locations is you can have many different streams on there. So let's say you have a finish location and you have an IP ecosystem where each reader is its own separate stream. You can connect both of those streams to one location, and then the system will select the best from either of those. It's just one stream of data coming in, and we're saying, okay, give me the best one. For a finish, that's the earliest. For the start, that's the latest. So if you want to learn more about setting up timing locations, click this link here, and it'll take you through that. So now let's talk about those time filters. You can filter out unneeded raw reads. So timing locations filter incoming data from connected streams based on time. Start data is accepted until a specific time, typically a few minutes after the gunshot, and then finish or split data is accepted from a specific time, typically a few minutes before the first expected finisher. A single stream can be linked to multiple locations. This allows you to apply unique time filters for different events, sharing the same finish area. So if you really needed to, you could have one stream that's connected to two different timing locations in RaceDay scoring, each with their own unique filters set up. So there's a few different examples of why you might want to do that, but we won't go into that here. Just good to know that if you need to, you can connect one stream to many locations and many streams to one location. Very, very flexible system. So how do you get there? Come into RaceDay scoring, click the little pin icon, and that'll be your timing locations. Now let's talk about the different types of timing locations. RaceDay scoring automatically creates a separate start and finish timing location for your race. This is a default setup. It works well for some races, but not all. It really is meant to be used only for races with distinct start and finish areas. Now, that may or may not be what you actually need for your race. We originally didn't set up any locations, but that confused more people. So we just set up a default start and finish. And we absolutely expect you to change this. We don't expect you to keep with this one. You should adjust it if you need to. So let's say you're doing a common start finish location where people are starting and finishing in the same area over the same readers, like a loop course. I would recommend that you use a single timing location to collect both start and finish times. Top reason, more of a streamlined workflow. Managing timing data in one location can simplify your workflow. And then it's simplified data management. All your timing data is in one place. And then you have the ability with a common start finish location to set a gap factor, which means you can say, I want to make sure that the minimum time between chip reads for a given person is at least 10 minutes or at least 30 minutes or whatever you want to define. That's really nice for your common start finish scenarios where they are going out on the 5K and then coming back. you don't want to accept a read that would be way too fast. And you can use gap factors to do that. If you want to learn more about how to switch a common start-finish setup to switch to a common start-finish setup from the default one, you can use this guide right here. Okay, so next we're going to talk about more about these filtering rules. So using these rules, along with timing, location, read selection, the last one seen for starts, first one for finish, this guarantees the best reads for all participants, and it eliminates concerns such as participants finishing on the finish mats with active chips after finishing, and participants crossing the start mats before the gunshot. Because remember, I was talking about before, it's very common that people stand on the start mats before the start of the race, and it's very common for people to finish and then come back over and cheer their friends on, right? It's not going to be ever an issue because of the way the read selection works. We're going to always ignore later finish times for people if they have a valid one after the one time that you've defined. So no need to worry about people mingling about the finish area once they've already finished. And so on the right here, this shows you a list of all of the raw reads and all of the reasons why the read was selected or ignored. Next, we're going to talk about the settings in the timing locations. So here you can see we have the settings for consider start times until and consider finish or split times after. So when should you stop collecting start times? You would come in here and set it basically to whatever time you think the last reasonable start time would be. Now, if you have a really late start, you would want to make sure that you accept that. There are ways to manage late or early starts that are different from this, but this is going to be your main filter to do so. And a similar thing on the finish area, you would set that very earliest time you want to start considering finish reads. So just a note here, if you do have an overlapping start and finish time frame, that's okay. So if you're saying, hey, I got a really late start, one person came late and they wanted to go out, so I let them, but they actually left after the first finisher had come in, it's totally fine. It's possible if these overlap. And the system just changes the way that it selects reads a little bit. It will take the first set of reads for a given participant that meets the gap factor. So here I have a 30-minute gap factor. It'll basically take the first two reads that have at least 30 minutes between them after the start was considered for them. So you can also do more specific filtering using additional bib and time filters. So if you have a 2-day event, you might consider setting up timing locations for each day, with each location filtered just to consider the reads for that day. So you could have a Friday timing location and a Saturday timing location, each of them filtered on both sides. So instead of just saying, hey, consider start times until 9:10, you might want to say, don't even start considering start times until 3 a.m. or something. It doesn't really matter. Next, we're going to talk about advanced time filtering. So this is the section I was talking about before. You can come in here and you can define additional filters like a full range of start reads that are valid. You can also define bib number filters. I don't see bib number filtering used that often, but it is something you could use. Next, you can think of time filters in this way. So at the bottom, there's a little graphic here that'll tell you what a multiple range setup would look like. Here, I am accepting start reads between 9 a.m. and 9:05, and then finish between 11 and 1. And times in between 9:05 and 11 are ignored, and all times before 9 and after 1 are ignored. So we've been talking a little bit about raw reads and scored reads, but what are they? So the raw reads are the unprocessed data directly from your timing devices, and that's what the streams pull in. It may be used as scored reads based on various criteria. They can be ignored for a bunch of different reasons. They could be filtered by bib or time because a better read was selected and it was unknown bib, occurrence not defined. All sorts of different reasons why a read could be ignored. And it's not, unusual for reads to be ignored. Usually, timing systems get a lot of data and it picks the best one. So there's going to be a ton of extra data you don't actually want to use. So the ones that we do use, we call scored reads. These are created from the best read available for each bib on the location that it's going to be used for. If the location is the start type, again, take the last scene. If it's a finish, you take the first scene. And these scored reads are used to calculate times. They can calculate segment times as well as overall times. So if you wanted to look into your raw reads and investigate what's going on with them, you can just click this raw read count in the top right of the dashboard. This will show you a list of all of the raw reads for your event, and it will allow you to see why they were ignored. You can filter this, search for people, do whatever you want. It'll tell you all the reasons why they were used or not used. So you'll notice in this example, I have 2 rows for each read, and that's because I had one stream that was used in the start and the finish. So you'll just notice that if you have these kind of wider rows, it's because you're using one stream for many locations. If you were doing a one-to-one, these would be a little bit thinner. Another way to view raw reads in RaceDay scoring that I think is really nice is you can actually click a bib number link anywhere in the app, and it'll bring you to the raw reads view filtered down to just this participant. So here I can look into this one person's data if I needed to see what happened. So let's say they said their time was wrong. You could come in here and see what's going on. Why was their read ignored? And maybe I wanted to override and select a different raw read. You could do that all from the raw reads area. Or if you needed to add a new read for someone, you could do it here too. And then if you wanted to check out the scored reads themselves, these are the selected reads, just come down here to the reads by location list, and you can see all of the reads that were accepted and used. And this just shows you how to get there. Next, we're going to talk about scored events and segments. This tells the system how to use the reads that have been selected to produce times. So we've got the data from the readers, we filtered it down to the best read based on the location type, but now what are we actually doing with that? We're going to make some times and put them into reports. So before we get too far here, I want to talk a little bit about scored events. This is really critical to understand before we talk about how we construct times. So first, you have to understand that there's a difference between registration events and scored events in our terminology. And it's pretty important to understand the difference. So scored events are collections of participants from one or more registration events of the same distance. Sometimes you need to combine together multiple registration categories. Most of the time, scored events have a one-to-one relationship with registration events. So the race organizers just have a 5K and it's called 5K, and they have a 10K and it's called 10K. But sometimes they have something like this on the right. They got 5K run, 5K walk, 5K club pricing, and they want one report. They want everybody together, right? So in that case, you would combine the 5K run, the 5K walk, and the 5K club pricing registration events into one scored event just called 5K. So that's really important to understand. You can learn more about setting up scored events at this link. To get into scored events in RaceDay scoring, come in here and you'll see this little icon. It says scored events when you hover on it. Click that, and then you can see the registration events that are selected here. So you can select one or many. What's important to understand is you cannot select one registration event to be used in multiple scored events. There are ways around that if you need to have participants show up in multiple scored events, but this wouldn't be how you do it. So for a basic race of just 5K, 10K, you can just use this quick setup. What this does is it creates a scored event for each and every individual registration event you have. So if you had just a 5K, it'll just create a scored event wrapper for that 5K. So that's easy if you have a simple setup. And even if you have a more complicated setup, you can get started with a quick setup and then delete the ones you don't need. Next, for each scored event, you need to define a start and finish timing location. This tells the system where the entire race segment begins and ends, which is important for calculating final times. You need to also define the occurrence, which tells the system which read to use at the finish location to calculate the final time. For example, a 2-lap race with a start and finish at the same location, you want to select start/finish as the start and finish locations. You'd want to set the finish occurrence to 3 because you would have the start occurrence, the end of lap 1 occurrence, and then the final time occurrence. There's other ways of doing this. Obviously, if it's a separate start finish, it would start at the start location and finish at the finish location. If it's a common start finish, it would be just start finish. Occurrence 2 is your finish occurrence. So just be really careful when you're setting all this up and think about what's going to happen. Now, if you aren't using chip timing to record start times, you can select not a time to start and the start timing location drop down. But if you don't, doesn't really matter. Nothing will go wrong. You can leave it as the default start location and just not collect any chip start times, and nothing bad will happen. So here's where you would come into your scored events and actually set your start and finish timing locations. Additionally, this is where you would set the default finish occurrence. Here, you would define 2 if it's a common start finish, but just make sure if you do that, you've selected the correct start and finish timing locations. Now, important thing, if you are timing a race, you have to set the actual start time. Don't forget this. It's pretty important for timing a race to get the accurate start time. So each scored event has its own actual start time, which can be manually set from the scored events setup page. It can also be set from the race dashboard using the set start times button, or from a gunshot marker collected from your reader. So there's a lot of different ways you can set start times in race day scoring. I recommend that you take a look through these articles, see what's possible. There are also ways that you can set up corral starts. And this guide, Start Times Overview, does a really great job at explaining how all of those work together, because basically if someone's in a corral, that overrides their assigned event start time. If I'm in the marathon, but I registered for the early start corral, my early start time will be considered as my clock start time, right? So to understand all those relationships, I would take a look at this Start Times Overview guide. So here in scored events, you can see and actually set the actual start time. You can use the set to current time if you want to start the race now, or you can set the time of day that the start time happened. So if you have someone out in the field who actually set the start time, you can do it right here. So next, let's talk about scoring by chip or clock. So each scored event can be scored by chip or clock time. A setting determines the default sort for reports, but you can use sort overrides in your reports to sort on different data as well. It's just going to define the default. So the first option is chip time. This uses the chip start time for each participant, and it will basically ignore any chip starts that are before the gun time. But there is an option here to say, actually, I do want to consider chip start times before the gun. This is usually not used, but in some cases it can be helpful. It's also possible to do this on the individual participant. So if you had one person who you know started really, really early and you don't want to set up a corral for them, you could go into their participant record and say, I want to consider chips or pre-gun times for this participant, and it will allow that override to happen, and their chip time will be accurate then. The clock time uses the assigned actual start time or corral time if that's set up. So, the clock is everybody goes off at 9 a.m. and the chip is, hey, everybody went off at 9 a.m., but I didn't even go over the mats until 9:05. So again, you can learn more about start times here. And then just a brief thing on corral. So sometimes participants in the same scored event need to have different start times. So you can set up a corral. Basically, it's a group of participants who should use a start time that is different from their scored event start time. So this is your early start corral, your waves, or your heats, things like that. You can learn more about corrals over here. And this is where you would set up how you want your default reports to work. You can, again, sort them on clock or chip using these. Next, let's talk about segments. Segments is putting all these things we've learned about so far together. They calculate the time and paces for participants for different events. They use timing locations as start and end points to calculate the time it takes to get between them. All scored events have a default entire race segment, which is the time it takes from the very start to the very finish. Additional segments can be created for splits, multiple laps, triathlons, or other different scenarios within a race. You don't have to worry about covering the entire distance of the race. You can have just a middle segment like a bike race with a hill climb in the middle. You don't have to define the segment from the start to the start of the hill or the top of the hill to the end of the race. If you only want to show the hill climb itself and the entire time, you can certainly do that. But the most important thing to understand here is all times are built from the timing location and the segment data. So basically, you have to tell it, hey, this time is built from whatever time of day they cross this location to whatever time of day they cross that location. You can learn more about segments at this link. So here's an example. You want to create a second 5K segment for a 10K race. Basically, let's say you have a split point out on course and it's a 10K and there are two segments within it. So there's a first 5K and a second 5K. Now, there's also the entire race, which is a 10K. So a segment could be defined as the start location to the split point location, and that would be your first 5K. And that would have a segment distance of 5K and a cumulative distance of 5K. So basically, the segment and cumulative distance are a little bit different, but for the first segment of the race, they will be exactly the same. Because what they are is the cumulative is the entire total distance they have covered for the whole race up to this point. So for the first segment, they're always going to be the same. But for the second segment, the second 5K, it's going to have a segment distance of 5K, because what that means is this segment, just this segment, is 5 kilometers. But the cumulative distance is considering all the distance I did before it as well. So the second 5K is going to have a segment distance of 5K and a cumulative distance of 10K. So just be really sure you understand how that works. The cumulative distance you want to get right, even if you aren't reporting cumulative distance anywhere. It will basically be used to order segments properly when they're published to RunSignup. They'll be ordered by the cumulative distance for each. So this is really critical to understand this. Additionally, in segments, you do have the option to set a minimum allowed time for each segment to prevent unrealistic or erroneous times. This is really handy if you have a chance to get a bad read somewhere that causes a really, really, really short segment time to occur. You could just set a minimum time that'd be reasonable. So if you have a bike leg, you might set it to 20 minutes or something like that. And it'll make it ignore any times that are less than 20 minutes. And that is found in segments. Looks like a little map icon here. So next, what we're going to talk about age groups and top finishers. This is how you define your awards categories. So there are two types. There are age groups and top finisher categories. Age groups are your standard male 20 to 24, female 35 to 39, so on and so forth. A breakdown of gender and age. You can set up how many people qualify for age groups. So you could say, 3 people get awards, and that would be a way to say that they are an award winner. And then top finisher categories are a way to cover or highlight a top group of participants. Very common example is going to be your top 3 overall male-female, your top masters male-female. You can also do custom categories based on specific criteria. For example, you might have a custom question on RunSignup that asks them, are you a Clydesdale or Athena? You can actually use that data to filter the top finisher category. So you want to only get people in this category if they said, I am a Clydesdale, for example. We have some nice setup guides on all this here you can learn more about. And so if you come into age groups, you'll see the age groups set up here and also top finishers. So you can go ahead and click set top finishers. And this is where you would, this is actually the age group setup. If you click the button to add a range, you would come in here and set up the range size, the starting age, the ending age, and the number of winners. This is the top finisher category section. So this is where you can see how many you want to award for each band. For the Open, I have 1. For Masters, I have 3, whatever. So we're not going to go too involved in how that's all done today. We're going to cover that more in certification. So next, we're going to reports. So reports is how you view, print, and customize result reports. So a report in RaceDay scoring, it's a collection of 1 or more report sections that show the results of a race. Report sections are like individual tables that show the results based on a defined set of criteria. They're really customizable. You can do a lot of different things. Some examples of different kinds of report sections are age group reports, team summary reports, overall reports. Now, default reports are created for each scored event and age group. When you use RaceDay scoring, if you save scored events, it'll automatically create some reports for you based on your setup. So feel free to play around with the reports. There's a ton of options and flexibility there. Don't just say, oh, it's all there and ready for me, so I don't have to do anything. I definitely would recommend taking a look at your reports, seeing what they look like, changing them, updating them, renaming things, deleting columns, adding columns. Definitely recommend learning how to use Report Builder because it's really flexible. If you want to learn how to get there, just come into the sidebar, click Reports, and then you can click into a report to view all the participants in the report on the right here. You can edit reports, select actions on a report, and then click Edit. This will allow you to reorder the columns, delete them, add new ones, and you can filter data in a report as well. So if you wanted to create a report of only people who are Clydesdale, you could filter on that, that custom question response we were talking about earlier. You can build a whole new report. So if you wanted to add a custom report that had different sections in it, you could do that. Just select the event to include, and then the section you want to add for this event. So different kinds of events have different report sections available to them. If you set up a relay team scored event, it's going to have different reports available. If you set up a lap scored event, it's going to have different reports available. So if you don't see the reports you want to see here, you might not have set things up correctly. Next, people ask a lot about how do I, or they ask about RunSignup results. How does it work? Well, in RaceDay scoring, it's not going to work right away. It doesn't, automatically start sending things to RunSignup, and that's good if you're just testing things and playing around. But if you want to get your results published, you do have to set up autosaves to RunSignup. So you can use quick publish settings, but I typically recommend just using autosaves. This will make it so that on RaceDay, you can just click the autosaves button on top and it will run results to RunSignup every 30 seconds in the background. You don't got to think about it. So it's a really nice way to get your results up quickly. Just you can set up all your autosaves before the race, a week out, whatever. Click autosave settings and then just click add stream at the bottom. And that's basically what we wanted to cover today. Again, we went through a whole lot of information. Next steps, getting help with RaceDay scoring. This is what to do when you don't know what to do. So he has a little help section on top here. There are some guides you can look through at the top. But if you have a question about what to do about a particular issue you have, click this submit a help ticket. This will send our support team a copy of the race that you're working on so they can see what is happening. And then they'll be able to help you troubleshoot your issue. Or if you're just stuck on a setup and need some direction, we're more than happy to help you out. This is the fastest way to get a good response from our support team because they have all of the information available to them. We recommend this over trying to give us a call because if you try and give us a call, we're just going to say send in the help ticket so I can look at your setup. So this is the best way to do any kind of support for us. Now, if you do want to have a phone call and walk through a setup scenario, we definitely we have that, and you can book a training session down here. So this will allow you to schedule a time with our training expert, and you can give them some information on what you're trying to do. A lot of times it's like, hey, I'm brand new to RaceDay scoring and need to get up to speed on things, or I have a specific scenario that I want to deep dive on. Soren's our guy who helps out with that, and he's really great at walking through all those scenarios. And if you have any other questions, those can be sent to raceday@runsignup.com, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. So I think that's all for today. Thanks again for coming. If you're here for certification class, that's going to be next on the docket. And if not, we'll talk to you next time. See you later.